Listen, you know what time it is. It's time for another episode of your favorite podcast entitled We Hate You, Internet! Welcome to We Hate You, Internet podcast that's fun but informative, that is designed to bring awareness to some of the issues that plague us as a result of the internet, or affect our lives in a negative way, while also celebrating the beautiful simplicity of our humanity. I'm Wilfred Hamilton. Alongside me is
Claire
my
Aguirre.
I, you know
I got to roll the R's because I know we're still working on that. So,
I was gonna be like, alongside me is my oh so pleasant. I'm gonna hit
oh,
you with a
you were gonna
couple
get
of
into the
hit you with a
okay,
couple of
okay. I
adjectives.
mean,
You know what I'm saying? But
you can still.
well, I mean, you already. I mean, you jumped the gun already. What we gotta do? All right. Yes, it's Clara Igede. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
okay.
For the non-Spanish speakers, you know what I'm saying? Clara. Uh, no, I don't know.
Just don't
Step,
say it.
yeah,
Just don't say the
yeah.
last name.
Step your game. But that's you got to step your game. But that's all it is. Anyway, okay. We've been silly. How you been, lady? It's been a while.
I've been good. I've
Yeah,
been good. Yes.
yeah. Making out.
Yes. Trying to make it
Excellent.
out here.
Trying to make it out here in these streets.
Yes.
Straight up. You know what I'm saying? Okay. We ain't always a whole lot of time giggling and whatnot. For today's topic, we want to discuss communication, right? Just how the internet has affected the way that we communicate one with another. I think that that's extremely important. I think it's one of those things that, um, you know,
It's inevitable.
yes,
It's like we have to talk about it.
got to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so on this show, we try to kind of start macro, big picture, and then kind of work our way down to specifics. Obviously, this is a enormous topic to discuss. So we're not gonna try to tackle everything. We'll probably revisit it at some point
Mm-hmm.
down the line, but we'll just take a little bite, a nibble out of it for today. And so when you look at communication, I think it's important to start with the fact that as human beings, as a species, we are a social we are we're social creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh like we need to be in community. I mean, some animals, some animals are solitary creatures, tigers and things of that nature, but not us. And so because of that fact, what I'm saying, we have to uh learn the skills in order to develop, I'm sorry, in order to function in that society. And so when you think about communication, one of the things that becomes very difficult uh, with that, just in general, is the complexity of humans, the complexity of our emotions. You know what I mean? Because we go through, people be going through all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
A full array of emotion, hormonal issues. And so trying to effectively communicate those things, can be very, very difficult. And then you throw, how people communicate on the internet, and that's a whole nother ball. You have anything you want to kind of touch on? How you want to throw something on there?
Yeah. I think that like I like what you said with like the complexity of humans and how they communicate. I think it also a lot of it has to do with this enormous disconnect that we're experiencing now.
Hmm.
Like, and not necessarily in terms of like communication as a broad topic, but more of like a disconnect between our very emotions, our like where our mind is at and where our physical body's at. Like now we have to, we can talk to each other from behind a screen. I could be at one end of the country, you could be at the other.
Hmm.
And we don't necessarily experience the same, like right now we don't talk to each other face to face.
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect, and I just wonder, like, it's always been so interesting, like how does it affect us?
Hmm.
Because when we think about how it's been for hundreds of years, like that's not how people communicated with each
Yeah.
other. They looked each other in each other's eyes. They listened to each other's voice. There's a different type of exchange going on. So I think now what we see is more of like a disconnection, and it's kind of interesting. And I think I'd be interested to like dive into that a little more because
Dive,
it's just interesting. Exactly.
dive in.
Uh-huh.
It's funny. We talk about and I think for this we can really just talk about kind of like social media because that's where a lot of the communication is being had now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the funny thing about like social media, it mimics society in that like you feel like you have connections with these people, you have friends and
Mm-hmm.
followers and blah 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 blah, DMs and all this kind of thing. uh, and like I said, us being in growing up in a society, it hones certain skills and abilities that we need in order to fully function as human
Mm-hmm.
beings. Um, but what social media lacks is the variance that a regular society has. Because with social media, you get to personalize. You know what I mean? And so if something that you don't like, you can unfollow, you can avoid, and then out of the way that the algorithm works,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can have your society tailor made. But then,
Even yourself, when you think about it, like your own pictures and stuff. You know what I mean?
yes, that is very true, and you get a chance to filter the way that society perceives you,
Mm-hmm.
which is,
I know.
that's a whole other topic. Like, you're trying to open up another can, but um, when you really dive into that, it really can develop a deficiency in individuals because they don't, like we talked about in one of our previous episodes, just about the necessity for resistance. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
necessity to learn how to deal with things that you're not comfortable with, because it's through that process that you grow. I mean, if you only do the things that you're comfortable with, then you're going to be very limited in your scope and your I guess scope. I guess we can use that word. But when you're faced with things that you're uncomfortable with, it brings out certain aspects of yourself that you previously were not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's through that process that you learn the skills. And like we already talked about, the primary function, the primary desire of a species is to survive. You know what I mean? So then you learn the skills that you need in order to survive. You learn how to properly communicate, how to properly convey, how to, in order to salvage or in order to, uh, um, goodness, in order to um, maximize your success
Mm.
in the society. And so, like, you think about how relationships work. You know, you have family, you have different family members, and each of those family members have different personalities and all that all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of jazz. You know what I'm saying? You got the uncle or the tío. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
They may be a little more hot headed than others. You gotta know how to handle that cat.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't certain things you can't say. There's certain ways you know what I'm saying. Certain ways you got to be able to run stuff with them, or you gonna have a problem. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? You're gonna let the tiger loose. so,
Yeah.
and so, or your mother, or whatever the case may be, you learn how to convey messages effectively with different people, right?
Yeah.
And that you learn that growing up in this ecosystem, in this society, family, whatever the case may be. But when you can personalize, when you can mute certain voices or not avoid people altogether, I mean, you don't learn those skills, and I think it's really important as a parent, right? I think it's really important. It really comes into play when you become a parent, and
What do you
especially if you have.
mean? Like how?
I got you.
That's
I'm
all.
trying to break it down, but I, especially when you have multiple children, because they all come from you as far as from biologically,
Mm-hmm.
but they all have their own spirit. You know what I mean? They all function. They are not cookie cut. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to learn how to deal with each one as an individual. You have siblings.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I know you. You know what I'm saying? So, and your siblings are different. You know what I mean? All of them have their own little. All of you, I should say, because you're one of them. All of y'all have your own way of thinking and processing information, how you deal with conflict, how you and all these different things, a different spirit. And so you learn the skills of how you need to talk to brother one, brother two, sister one, sister two. If you want to get a message across to them, if you don't want to have to be rolling around outside in the grass, you learn how to communicate with that individual. You know what I mean? But it's only through like uh, I guess you could say trial and error, right?
Mm.
That going through that process of learning how to effectively communicate with this person versus effectively communicate with that person. You know what I mean? And so, uh, yeah, and so like, um, it's one of those things that when when you're on social media, you have to be very very careful uh, that you don't lose those skills
Mm-hmm.
while you're navigating that space. You know what I mean?
That's really interesting
Yeah.
because I also think about like when you bring up um that point that interacting with another person, like you learn kind of how to move and navigate through that interaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think something that is kind of interesting and kind of ties into this too is like the whole cancel culture. Um, I it's because there are some people who try to communicate or be completely unfiltered, and then it leads to something like cancel culture, and it's like, go ahead.
Keyboard warriors.
Yeah, yeah. It leads to that. Or people who are very like they feel really powerful behind that keyboard and what they're saying. And it's kind of interesting because there's like two extremes, you know? Like you have people that they will filter and kind of like just create their own little world that they're happy in, that they get the information they want and everything else is kind of at the door. But then you also have people who they will say anything or even things that are kind of, they're completely inappropriate
Yeah.
or just dangerous or very damaging. They'll still say these things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of like, okay, well, how do you navigate through that? How do you find that middle ground? But I think that there have been people who like try, or there's just maybe in a way like this is a result of that, like the fact that the internet has given everybody that,
Mm-hmm.
but no, it's kind of like they gave them the tools but no instruction like as to how to use it, they give you that big microphone but they don't tell you like, okay, well, you probably, because common sense, right? But
Yeah.
common sense isn't so
But
common.
but it's interesting you say common sense. Common sense is honed through your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's
people,
true.
if you're not exposed to certain things, then you're not going to be aware. You're not going to account for that in your thought process. You know what I mean? So people use that word, they throw that word around. It's common sense, but and that can be a whole other topic anyway. But but it's important to understand, even when you're trying to be gracious, you're just trying to deal with people. Period. That
Mm-hmm.
like everybody have their own experiences, and that's what hones their common sense. And so, but what I will say though, in regards to the keyboard warrior,
Mm-hmm.
it's certain things like, listen, it's certain things that the internet allows you, certain behavior it allows you to have, that you otherwise would not be allowed to have if the internet didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
If you run your mouth too much, see, in real life, you know what I mean, or like
Yeah.
in the way that the world actually works, right? You know what I'm saying? You got to really think about
What you're
what
gonna
you
say.
what you want
Yeah.
to say, because
Yeah.
there will be a reaction.
Consequence. Yeah, a major consequence. You can't just say anything. It's the truth because like in
Oh
the
goodness.
day to day, I mean, somebody doesn't like what you say. It's something that it's going to be dealt with at that moment. But on the internet, like you can essentially say whatever you want,
Yeah.
and physically, you're fine. Like you don't have to worry about your safety, you know? But
It's comical. It's comical, but when you think about that fact, right? That it causes people, like we talked about, the whole point. It causes a deficiency in people's development, because we talk about, now we go into the part talking about conflict resolution, right? Like how to resolve conflict. People, because of like the way that social media is constructed, I don't have to deal with conflict. I can just log off. I can say whatever. I can shoot whatever message I want to
or
shoot.
even block the other person or delete the
Exactly.
comments.
And
Yeah.
then I don't have to but you cannot, the real world doesn't function like that.
Mhm.
You have to learn how to deal with people or deal with subjects that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, or that you disagree with completely, you know?
Exactly. You have to. And then you have to think about what you want to say, how you want to say it, or should I say this? Because there's gonna be a reaction. There's gonna
Mhm.
be how you say, a consequence. And so you know, when you know, and so when you really like kind of like think about that, right? Like, uh, you know, not having to look a person in their face
Mm-hmm.
and think about and I this is the word I was looking for, accountability. That's the word I'm looking for. People don't have to be accountable for their words. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And that brings a whole nother level of issues in their development and their maturity. Because when you know, a child will say something, I hate you, I wish you died, and they run off or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Because kids do that. But when you become an adult, like, you have to think about what you say,
Yeah.
and you have to make sure that you stand on what you say.
Yeah. And then those, you can never take it back sometimes.
You,
Like if you were to
yeah.
say certain things and you know this is going to hurt that person, you can't go back in time and take that back.
So,
You can't change what you said. Like you have
mhm,
to stand by that until the day that you die. You know, like that's just what it is. But
yeah.
that's not necessarily the case on the internet.
You know, we said we were going to. Clara had a wonderful idea. She was like, Hamilton, we should ask a question to the people and let them. We should ask a question and let them engage us in conversation. Let them be a part of the conversation. Yeah. So I was like, that's pretty good. Pretty good idea, Claire. You know, everything with her is, cotton candy and stuff like that. She real sweet like that. But we talk about conflict resolution. Don't let the smooth taste fool you. She done told me a story or two. And let me know that, you know what I'm saying? That thing got teeth in there. That cute little animal got some teeth in there. But anyway, we'll talk about that maybe on another episode. But anyway, um, um, I lost my train of thought being silly. The question, oh yeah, the question. Have you ever had a situation where your lack of ability to communicate has caused some damage in your relationships? Um, I think that's a pretty easy question to answer. Like, I think all of us have had an experience like that, but I think that it's important. I think that's one of the things that really highlight what we're discussing,
Mm-hmm.
just about how mindful you should be about what you say, how
Yeah.
powerful your words are,
Yeah.
and how important your communication is to the overall quality of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, and then, like, so going back to what we just to the discussion, being accountable to what you say. You know what I mean? Like, um, um, you think about, you have to look somebody, like, say, we're going back to the point I was making earlier. You have to look somebody in their face, and you make a statement. You have to really be convicted on what it is, that the words that come out of your mouth. You know what I mean? It was a time when the words that you spoke could be the difference between you living or dying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to think about, is what I'm gonna say worth dying for? And
Mm-hmm.
that's and to have that level of self awareness, right? We talk about that a lot of times too. Just a person being aware of being knowing themselves. That's something that people talk about all the time now. Like, man, like, I really don't know myself. What is my purpose? These kind of things is because they're so focused on watching other people and being influenced by other things that they don't take and this is a part of that process, as far as not being able to acknowledge themselves, right? Not being accountable to themselves. They don't have the time, or they don't take the time, or they can't go through the development necessary
Mm-hmm.
to know who I am, to know
Mm.
what I like and what I don't like,
You know,
to know
I
what I
sorry.
stand. No, it's okay. I'm shooting your way. To know what I stand for, and, like, what doesn't really bother me. Like,
Yeah.
that's a process to understand it, and it takes going through the fire sometimes
Mm-hmm.
to be able to come to those conclusions.
I think that also like prevents people from understanding other people too, because I think part of the like a lot of people misunderstand communication. Like
Yeah.
they feel like it's just them talking and that's it. Or I want to make sure I effectively say what I want to say. But most of the time, in most cases, even like when you're having debates, um, some of the most effective ways to discuss things is by being solution based, not necessarily I'm right, you're wrong.
Mm.
It's more so let's find an answer. Let's find a solution for both of our issues or whatever it is that we're trying to discuss or debate or whatever it may be. And we've lost the ability to listen to each other
Mm.
too. And I don't say like just listening in terms of what it is that's coming out of your mouth, but also like listening in terms of body language. Like like this subject that we're talking about, how does it affect you as a person? Like,
Mm.
why does it affect you so much? Why do I think it affects you so much? Like, who are you? As I look at you and as I watch you and as you say these things, like, I can tell this is important to you, or learning how to read each other, because honestly, I think that's what makes us human. It's not necessarily the fact that we can
Mm.
walk, talk, and think. It's more so the fact that we can also like sympathize with each other. We can have compassion for each other. We can understand like, okay, like this subject is really important to you, Wilfred, and I want to make sure I also treat it with the same importance,
Mm.
because I think that's part of the connection. That's part of being human, and it's part of understanding the fact that we are connected. And I think that's also kind of why like internet trolls, it's so easy for them to be so mean and so cruel because they don't have that connection. Like they don't see
Mm.
what they're saying as like, okay, this is really going to hurt that person, or they do, but they don't care. And it's like, "Ooh, it's kind of funny," or it's they're having a great time doing it. But like that's, I think if anything, that kind of goes against to what we are as humans, because I mean, that's how we were able to survive for so long too. Like if a human saw another human, or a tribe saw another human, like fighting a saber-toothed tiger, whatever, like they were likely to help that person. It's not like they just, I mean, of course you have some that will, it's the
Nah, man.
contrary,
They
but
sat. They sat on the sidelines and sent emojis and stuff
that's
like.
a,
They
yeah,
sat on the
but
side like, man, look at that boy. Ooh, oh.
nowadays that is the case. Like you have people who they watch a crime happen in front of them, and not saying like, of course there's complexities and there's things going on and your own safety, but they're more likely to record it and just watch like from afar. And I think that's that screen disconnect. It's literally a wall. That screen is a wall, and it prevents you from seeing, okay, there's another human being on the other side.
Mm.
Like because there's everybody. It could be any video. What do? You go straight to the comment section because it's gonna be hilarious or brutal or whatever. Like
Mm.
that's where people really unleash these sides of themselves
Mm.
that they would not typically like unleash, or and then these trolls come out from under the bridge.
Under the bridge. Here we go. Man, you know. I the internet troll, or just the comment section. Period. Like I think we want to kind of touch on that. I want to touch on that on a different because that's a whole another thing I love to try to get into. We'll touch on that on another episode. Um, just like you said, just the disconnect and the altered reality that the internet has created for people. You know what I mean? Like uh, you and I know a person, right, that had an unfortunate situation happen to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a death in the family, traumatic. And that information was the story was on on the news and it was on the
Yeah.
internet. And then you go into the comment section and people are just,
Cruel.
I mean, like absolutely ridiculous. And someone lost, a young life was
Yeah.
lost, and people were just they were having a wonderful time, and it's crazy because, like I said, and we're gonna start start trying to wrap this up a little bit. Um, Human beings are by nature social creatures, right? We seek society. There's comfort in groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
And social media has provided a pseudo society for people, where people are connected, but it's not in the way that it's originally designed. They can personalize it, and that brings a problem, right? And so people can get together in the comment section, and they feel apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they get in, and people are saying all these outrageous things in order to fit in, to feel comfortable, which is people have, people, little kids, if you talk to a child and they get caught up in peer pressure. Those of us that get a little bit older, we start to understand, like, man, peer pressure, like, man, these people don't pay your bills. They ain't feed you. Like, why are you worried
Yeah.
about what these people are talking about? But for them, that's their world. And so fitting in for them is like it's survival for them. You know what I mean? And you try to help a child grow and develop uh, out of that. But
Mm-hmm.
but that comes with the maturation and development process
Mm-hmm.
that we've been talking about this whole time. But you get into the comment section of a crazy post or whatever, and people forget that that's real life on the other side of that screen. Like that's somebody's real life because it doesn't affect me. You know what I mean? And so for us, it's just entertainment. It's just like any other TV show or anything else I saw. And it's just it's funny, you know. And like I get people's humor, like because they're making fun of it like they saw a sitcom or something. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And but they're not really thinking about the fact that what did this person happen to see these comments? You
Or
know what
what
I
if
mean?
it was you?
What if it was you? What if it was your family
Mm-hmm.
that lost somebody, and you go into the comment section and you see these people just raking your family over the coals, making fun of this, this tragedy, and like, but that's something that you think to yourself, would they say that if they were looking at that person in their face? Absolutely not. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
it wouldn't
You
happen.
you you would never say that.
And if you did, there's a consequence to
You
that.
best believe. You know what I'm saying? It's I hope you got your track shoes on because it's been to get serious in there.
Yeah.
But I think that part of communication, and like I said, we can get into this in several other topics. It's just about um, the dynamics in relationships, in marriages, just between in parent and child, just the inability and the lack of patience. You kind of touched on that to effectively have a to effectively communicate one to another. To take the time to actually listen to what somebody is telling you. You know what I mean? Because everything's moving so fast. I don't have time to listen. I don't have time to process. Like I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say, just like I do in the comment section. When I say my statement, then I move on.
Yeah.
But you cannot effectively have healthy communicate or healthy relationships like that. Impossible. You know what I mean? And so that's one of the things that as we wrap this puppy up, that's one of those things that we want to leave the listeners with. We thank you for hanging with us this long. Hope that the information was insightful. One thing we try to leave a tip: um, make sure that you take the time to slow down and think about what you say. Think about the gravity of your words, how powerful your words can be, and they can either build up or they can tear down.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Take the time to consider, just as if this person was standing in front of me, would I say this? Is this something that like um, I'm fully convicted of and convicted in, and I'll die for this? Yeah, because like you said, and how many times we heard a story about somebody saying something to somebody, saying something crazy to their parent, to somebody, and then that person dies. Now you can't take it back. That's the last thing you said to them was, "I hate your guts. I wish you were dead." And now here we go. You got your wish, and you have to live the rest of your life trying to, what I mean, with this guilt on your back. But how many times people have fallen out of relationships, divorces, things of that nature because you said something you shouldn't have said. You know what I mean? Like, and that may be a part of it, but it's just the words that you say can bring life or they can bring death. Facts. It's just the bottom point blank period. And so you have to think to yourself, here I go, the camera, right? Like your words are powerful. Make sure that you wield them with wisdom and self control. You know what I mean? Because they can bring life and they can bring life or they can bring death. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's it for this episode. Anything you want to try to throw on top of this before we wrap it up and give it to the people?
No, I think you said it beautifully. I think that your words become your reality, and being more conscious as to what you say. I mean, you can choose to make this a better reality, or like you said, life or death, or not a great one. So I think being more aware of what comes out of your mouth, that's important. So
Indeed. So we want to reiterate the question of the day. Have you ever had a situation where your lack of ability to communicate has caused some damage in your life? Leave it in the comment section. We all want to learn from each other. We want to kind of share some information and discuss things and have a healthy society built around conversations like these. And so um, you have an opportunity. If you haven't done it already, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you're on, whatever
share.
platform.
Hmm.
Share. Yeah, it's a good job, lady. You know what I'm saying? Share that. Leave all that toxicity out of it.
Yeah.
Share that, dog. But enjoying the conversation, man. We have a lot more in store. We hope and pray that the information has been beneficial for you. And until next time, stay safe, stay blessed, and above all, stay human. We out.